Aliens had no idea who d arrive. Then the Deathworlders from the galaxy appeared. The alien civilization that lived in the far reaches of the galaxy had long prided itself on its knowledge and control over the stars. Their homeworld, a place of shimmering towers and carefully engineered landscapes, reflected their belief in order and logic. Every decision, every movement, and every creation was calculated. The species that inhabited this world, tall, slender beings with eyes like polished amber, believed themselves to be the wisest in their sector. They studied the universe with precision, cataloging stars, planets, and even the faintest signals that drifted across the void. They were explorers, yes, but explorers who preferred observation over interaction. The unknown fascinated them, but they believed they could predict it, control it, and understand it before it could pose a threat. For years, the aliens had monitored their region of space without interruption. They had sensors that could detect the smallest changes in gravitational fields, the faintest energy emissions from faraway suns, and even the subtle movements of distant asteroids. On this particular cycle, a subtle anomaly appeared on their screens, a small, irregular spike of energy moving into their sector. The alien analysts huddled over the glowing displays, comparing it to all known patterns. It didn't match the signatures of passing comets, cargo freighters, or natural phenomena. Something, they concluded, was approaching. Excitement and curiosity filled the control centers. Some suggested that it might be a new species of traders or explorers. Others feared a rogue vessel from an uncharted region. The leadership convened a council, a group of the oldest and most experienced minds, to decide the response. As always, the council believed that they could handle whatever arrived. Their technology was advanced, their knowledge vast. They believed firmly that nothing in the universe could surprise them. Orders were given to prepare for contact. Observation drones were dispatched to intercept the anomaly and gather information. Communications arrays hummed with activity, broadcasting welcoming messages in multiple frequencies. The aliens hoped to establish friendly contact, to understand the visitors and their intentions. Their plans assumed the newcomers would respond in kind, that they would be cautious, rational, and perhaps even impressed by the aliens' civilization. But the energy spike on the sensors was no ordinary visitor. As it drew closer, it became clear that it moved with an unexpected speed and precision. The shape of the approaching vessel, or vessels, was unfamiliar, chaotic even, with angles and edges that defied the patterns catalogued over centuries. The aliens murmured among themselves, trying to make sense of it. They compared it to the ships of traders, explorers, and even war vessels, but nothing matched. Despite their anxiety, they clung to confidence. Surely they could still manage the situation. When the alien scientists finally got a clear visual on the incoming ships, a hush fell over the control room. The vessels were massive and unlike anything they had seen. They were covered in rugged armor plates, with surfaces scarred and dented as if they had survived countless battles and harsh environments. Their engines pulsed with a strange rhythm, not the smooth hum the aliens were used to. Every ship seemed alive with motion, constantly adjusting, shifting, as though it responded to its environment instinctively rather than mechanically. The council struggled to understand what they were seeing. One of the younger analysts spoke up. "They don't follow any known design principles. They're chaotic. How could something so disorganized function so perfectly?" The elder members of the council exchanged uneasy glances. They had expected grace, precision, and compliance with known laws of physics. Instead, these newcomers moved unpredictably, almost aggressively, yet with a deadly efficiency. Orders were issued to prepare defenses. Not because the aliens wanted a fight, they did not, but because they were cautious. Their systems activated shields and deployed patrol drones, scanning the region in anticipation of any hostile action. The council reminded themselves that they were the most advanced species in their sector. Surely no visitor could pose a threat. Yet a small, gnawing fear began to creep into their minds. Something about the Deathworlders, the name they had yet to assign them, felt wrong. The first real test came when the alien communication systems tried to establish contact. Messages were broadcast in multiple frequencies, using patterns meant to be universally understandable. Symbols, sounds, and energy pulses all combined to convey welcome, peace, and curiosity. But the response, or lack of it, was immediate and unsettling. The approaching vessels ignored all attempts at communication. No signals returned, no acknowledgement. The aliens' carefully prepared messages seemed to vanish into the void, unanswered and unconsidered. Panic did not set in yet, but unease spread through the alien ranks. The confidence they had relied upon for generations wavered. The leadership debated the situation. Should they retreat to the inner systems, or should they hold their ground? The outer defenses were already active, and every sensor indicated that the visitors were intelligent, capable, and possibly aware of their presence. But their motives remained unclear. They were no ordinary explorers, no traders, no diplomats. There was a rawness to them, a survivalist intensity that radiated from their approach. Hours passed, and the alien scientists gathered more data, desperately trying to make sense of the anomaly. Every calculation, every model, and every prediction failed to match reality. The Deathworlders moved in ways that defied expectation, adapting instantly to the alien detection systems, slipping past patrol drones, and navigating through hazards the aliens assumed were impassable. Each success was documented with awe and fear, yet no one dared to speak openly of dread. They continued to believe that they could still manage the encounter, even as the evidence suggested otherwise. The tension in the control rooms became palpable. Analysts worked in shifts, monitoring every movement, every energy pulse, every minute change in the environment. The aliens tried to interpret the newcomers' intent. Were they curious, hostile, reckless? The data offered no answers. There were no predictable patterns, no behaviors that matched the thousands of species they had encountered over centuries. Every assumption they held about the galaxy was challenged in real time. Finally, the first Deathworlder ship appeared in orbit of the alien homeworld. From a distance, it seemed impossibly large, imposing and scarred by countless unknown encounters. The alien analysts, peering through their high-resolution sensors, could see strange markings along the hull, symbols or damage. It was impossible to tell. The ship's engines flared intermittently, producing bursts of energy that the aliens had no systems capable of producing themselves. It was clear that this was no ordinary visitor. The council convened again, this time with faces etched in concern. "They are not like any species we have studied," one elder stated, voice calm but tense. "We cannot predict their actions. They do not respond to our communications. They ignore our presence, yet they are not attacking, yet." The words hung in the air. A silent understanding spread among the members of the council. The galaxy was far stranger than they had imagined, and their carefully ordered knowledge was insufficient to comprehend what had arrived. As the alien homeworld prepared for the unknown, scouts were launched to monitor the Deathworlders more closely. The ships moved with terrifying efficiency, surveying the planet, analyzing the environment, and adjusting their trajectory with precision. Every calculation the aliens made about their speed, direction, and intent was proven wrong within minutes. The Deathworlders were not merely moving. They were studying, learning, adapting, and reacting to a level of instinct and skill that no species had demonstrated before. By the time the sun of the alien homeworld dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across their towers and streets, the council had come to a reluctant conclusion. Their assumptions about the galaxy, about the limits of life and survival, and about their own superiority were all being challenged. The visitors, the Deathworlders, were forces unlike anything they had anticipated. They were not polite, not predictable, and not bound by the constraints the aliens had always relied upon. They were something new, something terrifying, and something extraordinary. As night fell over the alien civilization, the ships of the Deathworlders lingered in orbit, silent and unmoving to the untrained eye, but alive with activity to those who watched closely. The aliens, for the first time in their long history, faced the stark realization that they were not the masters of their sector. Something had arrived that they could not fully understand, something that would test everything they thought they knew about survival, intelligence, and the universe itself. The first contact was not an encounter. It was a lesson, and the aliens were only beginning to understand it. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Deathworlders' arrival changed everything on the alien planet. Unlike anything the aliens had prepared for, the newcomers did not follow rules, did not respect boundaries, and did not respond to diplomatic signals. Their ships, massive and jagged, broke through the atmosphere with a roar that shook the sensors of the alien monitoring stations. The aliens watched in disbelief as the vessels moved with astonishing precision, landing in areas that no one had expected. There were no patterns, no hesitation, only action guided by instinct, experience, and the hard lessons of survival. On the ground, the Deathworlders emerged in a way that unsettled even the bravest of alien observers. They were tall and broad, clothed in armor and fabrics that appeared both functional and worn from decades of use. Every piece of their gear told a story. Scratches, patches, and reinforcements hinted at countless battles and harsh environments. Their faces, hidden partially behind protective masks, revealed nothing, but their eyes glimmered with awareness, calculation, and a strange, calm confidence. They moved swiftly, almost like predators assessing their surroundings, yet there was no aggression without cause. The aliens tried to organize a welcome party, or at least a controlled first encounter. Delegates in sleek robes and uniforms gathered at the designated landing zones, expecting the newcomers to follow the proper protocols of first contact. They were prepared to greet, to guide, and to establish the rules of interaction. But the Deathworlders ignored the designated zones. They walked past the prepared delegates, scanning buildings, examining the terrain, and marking points of interest. Their movements were deliberate and efficient, yet unpredictable. The alien delegates attempted to communicate. They spoke in their musical language, used light patterns, and even tried to broadcast energy pulses that conveyed universal symbols of peace. Each attempt failed. The Deathworlders did not respond, at least not in the ways the aliens expected. Sometimes one of the Deathworlders would pause, observe a display, and nod almost imperceptibly before moving on. At other times, they seemed entirely indifferent, passing objects, structures, and even drones with apparent disregard. The aliens quickly realized that traditional diplomacy was meaningless in this encounter. Despite the apparent chaos, the Deathworlders were efficient. They assessed resources, checked the stability of structures, and seemed to understand the environment better than the aliens themselves. One particularly skilled alien engineer watched as a Deathworlder approached a delicate communication tower. Instead of damaging it, the visitor carefully inspected the structure, adjusted a support, and moved on. It was a shocking display of intuition and skill. The aliens began to understand that these beings were not careless. They were precise, but their precision did not follow the rules the aliens knew. Tension grew rapidly in the alien city. Citizens who had only known order and predictability watched the newcomers with fear and fascination. Crowds gathered at safe distances to observe the strange visitors. The aliens realized quickly that these were not mere explorers. The Deathworlders were strong, adaptable, and completely indifferent to alien social norms. Their presence alone unsettled the foundations of the society, for which control and predictability had always been sacred. At the same time, alien scientists attempted to understand the newcomers. They collected samples, scanned the environment, and attempted to track movements. Every analysis revealed something extraordinary. The Deathworlders' bodies and technology had evolved to endure extreme conditions, from toxic atmospheres to violent weather. Their minds, too, worked differently. They could assess danger and opportunity instantly, make complex decisions on the spot, and adapt to changes that would overwhelm even the most advanced alien AI. The Deathworlders explored the city with a careful balance of caution and boldness. They entered buildings, examining materials and mechanisms, yet left nothing destroyed. One alien observer noted that their movements resembled those of highly trained specialists in dangerous environments, never wasting energy, always anticipating threats, yet never reckless. The aliens began to whisper among themselves. Who were these beings, and why had they arrived now in this particular sector? Attempts to interfere only highlighted the visitors' adaptability. When alien patrols tried to block their path, the Deathworlders simply found alternative routes, often choosing paths that the aliens considered impossible. They climbed sheer walls, crossed unstable bridges, and navigated obstacles with a skill that seemed almost supernatural. The alien leadership realized that their most advanced defenses were nearly useless against such instinctive expertise. Panic and awe mixed in equal measure. As the day passed, the Deathworlders' presence started to change the city itself. Citizens began to follow them at safe distances, both terrified and curious. Children peered from windows, elders whispered in concern, and the scientists recorded every movement for further study. Despite the chaos, the Deathworlders left a sense of order in their wake, a strange, instinctive order that the aliens could not yet comprehend. They were not violent without reason, but they were in complete control of their actions, unlike the aliens who relied on rules and procedures. By mid-cycle, alien leaders convened a high-level council. They discussed what had happened so far, the visitors' disregard for protocol, their efficiency, and their adaptability. One counselor stated, "We assumed that every species behaves in predictable ways. We believed intelligence comes with caution and compliance. These beings do not conform. They defy our expectations at every turn." Another added, "We cannot fight them, but we cannot communicate either, yet they do not attack outright. What do they want?" Meanwhile, the Deathworlders continued their systematic survey. They approached the alien power plants, water systems, and food production areas, inspecting every detail without causing harm. Their actions were not random. Every step seemed purposeful, but the aliens could not decipher the logic behind it. It was a reminder that these visitors were not ordinary explorers. They were survivors. Everything they did was guided by experience, instinct, and an understanding of danger that transcended the aliens' careful calculations. The first encounter with the alien wildlife demonstrated another extraordinary aspect of the Deathworlders. The planet's creatures, while not hostile, reacted aggressively to unknown presences. Yet the visitors moved calmly among them, predicting behavior, avoiding attacks, and sometimes even calming animals through subtle gestures and movements. Alien observers recorded this with astonishment. No other species had shown such instinctive understanding of other life forms. Night fell over the city, but the activity of the Deathworlders did not cease. They set up temporary shelters, maintained watches, and continued their survey. Their presence illuminated areas that had never been explored, highlighting weaknesses and strengths of the city's infrastructure. For the aliens, the night was restless, filled with fear, curiosity, and a growing respect. Every observer, from citizen to council member, understood that these visitors were not easily categorized. By the next cycle, patterns began to emerge, not in the way the aliens had hoped, but in a way that showed the Deathworlders' method. They did not destroy, they did not conquer, but they assessed, adapted, and acted with skill that surpassed understanding. The alien leaders recognized that they were witnessing a new kind of intelligence, one that did not rely on tradition, procedure, or bureaucracy, but on experience, instinct, and adaptability. It was a humbling realization. Despite the fear, some aliens began to admire the visitors. Scientists marveled at their problem-solving abilities. Engineers were fascinated by the way the Deathworlders adapted to the city's technology. Citizens whispered about the bravery and skill of these newcomers, even while remaining cautious. The city, once a model of calm order, now felt alive with tension, awe, and an unspoken lesson in humility. The aliens understood, more clearly than ever, that they were dealing with a force that could not be predicted or controlled. The Deathworlders were not invaders, but they were not ordinary travelers either. Every action, every movement, every decision reflected experience in hostile environments, an ability to survive where others would fail. The aliens had believed they were the most advanced in their sector, but the newcomers proved that intelligence could take forms beyond calculation, protocol, or expectation. By the end of the second cycle, the aliens had learned an important lesson. Confidence in knowledge was not the same as understanding reality. The Deathworlders had arrived without warning, ignored rules, and demonstrated skills that the aliens could barely comprehend. They had shown respect for life, for survival, and for skill, but they had also reminded the alien civilization that the universe was larger, stranger, and more dangerous than anyone could predict. The city fell into an uneasy rhythm. Observers followed the Deathworlders at a distance. The council debated constantly, trying to adapt to a new reality. Citizens slept with windows open, listening to the hum of alien ships and the occasional sound of the newcomers moving through the streets. And through it all, the Deathworlders continued their careful, instinctive, and relentless survey, leaving a mark on the alien society that would not be forgotten. As the alien sun rose on a new day, the council met one final time before the cycle ended. They had witnessed skill, adaptability, and a form of intelligence that defied their understanding. One elder spoke softly. "They are not like us. They do not follow our rules. And yet they teach us what it means to survive, to adapt, and to act with clarity." The words resonated through the chamber. For the first time, the aliens realized that their world, their knowledge, and their perception of control had been challenged. They were no longer the masters of their sector. Something had arrived that would change everything, and they could only watch and learn. The Deathworlders' presence on the planet was a quiet storm. They did not shout, they did not demand, they did not destroy without reason. Yet their arrival had reshaped the alien civilization, challenging pride, intelligence, and confidence. The visitors had shown that survival, skill, and instinct could surpass knowledge, preparation, and rules. The aliens would never forget the day the Deathworlders arrived, for it marked the beginning of a new understanding of the universe, one that included forces beyond calculation, beyond diplomacy, and beyond fear. The first encounter on the ground was over, but the story had only just begun. The aliens watched as the Deathworlders moved among their city, quietly, efficiently, and with purpose. And in their hearts, a mixture of fear, respect, and awe took root. The Deathworlders were here, and nothing would ever be the same. The Deathworlders had been on the alien planet for several cycles now, and every day they continued to amaze, frighten, and fascinate the alien population. They moved through cities, forests, and wastelands with the same careful efficiency, adapting instantly to environments that would challenge even the most advanced alien technology. Every obstacle seemed trivial to them, every hazard an opportunity to demonstrate their extraordinary survival skills. Observers could not believe the way they moved, as if the planet itself had become a map they already knew by instinct. Alien scientists tried to study them closely, sending drones and probes to record the Deathworlders' actions. Every motion was precise, calculated, yet effortless. One researcher noted how they could navigate treacherous terrain without pause. Jagged cliffs, toxic gases, and crumbling bridges were no match for them. They assessed dangers instantly, choosing paths that seemed impossible to the alien mind. Their knowledge of survival was innate, built from countless experiences in harsh, unforgiving worlds that no alien had ever imagined. The Deathworlders' methods were not violent, but they were incredibly effective. They gathered food and resources in ways that left almost no trace. Alien biologists were fascinated to see how they identified edible plants, purified water, and hunted small creatures using only simple tools and careful observation. They did not waste energy or material. Every action had purpose. Even when handling potentially dangerous animals, they acted with calm confidence, avoiding harm unless absolutely necessary. In the cities, their presence caused a mixture of fear and admiration. Citizens watched from high windows or behind barricades, whispering about the newcomers. The Deathworlders walked through marketplaces, examined structures, and sometimes paused to inspect machines or devices. They did not speak in words the aliens could understand, but their gestures, movements, and glances conveyed awareness, calculation, and subtle communication. People began to realize that the Deathworlders were not just strong, they were intelligent in a way that the aliens had never encountered before. Military analysts struggled to make sense of them. Their training had always assumed predictable behavior from other species. Attack patterns, defense strategies, and diplomatic gestures could be analyzed and anticipated. But the Deathworlders broke every expectation. They did not avoid dangers in predictable ways, they adapted to them. When a security drone tried to follow them, they simply moved out of its range, climbed structures it could not reach, or altered their path without hesitation. Every assumption the aliens had about control and predictability was challenged. One notable incident occurred near a power facility at the edge of the city. Alien engineers had prepared for disasters with reinforced barriers, energy shields, and automated warnings. The Deathworlders approached the facility with caution, analyzing each barrier. They did not attempt to destroy it. Instead, they studied the mechanisms, touched panels lightly, and understood the function of each component almost instantly. Within moments, they navigated through without causing damage, leaving the engineers both relieved and baffled. "It is as if they understand everything at a glance," one engineer whispered. Meanwhile, alien scientists focused on studying their biology. The Deathworlders' bodies were incredible instruments of survival. They could endure extreme heat, cold, radiation, and even toxic atmospheres. Their muscles and reflexes were finely tuned to respond to danger, yet they showed no sign of panic. Even when faced with aggressive alien wildlife, they moved in ways that minimized risk while maximizing efficiency. Observers noted how their movements resembled a perfect combination of strategy and instinct, a harmony that no alien could replicate. The Deathworlders' approach to technology was equally remarkable. Alien computers, vehicles, and machinery were foreign to them, yet they adapted quickly. They did not rely on alien manuals or instructions. Instead, they examined, tested, and learned on the spot. One moment they would be climbing a steep industrial tower. The next, they were operating a complex energy generator to stabilize power without guidance. Their methods were not the same as the aliens, but they worked. Every attempt to anticipate their actions failed, leaving the aliens in awe. As time passed, the alien population began to adjust to the Deathworlders' presence, though uneasily. Markets, streets, and public spaces were filled with cautious curiosity. Children tried to observe them from safe distances, elders speculated about their origin, and scientists compiled endless records of their behavior. Even the alien leadership, which had once assumed total control over the situation, admitted that these visitors were teaching lessons about adaptability, resilience, and the limits of knowledge. In one incident, the Deathworlders moved into a dense forest outside the city. Alien scouts predicted they would take the easiest path, yet the visitors navigated through thick underbrush, avoided dangerous predators, and crossed rivers without equipment. Alien biologists tracked their every step, noting their instinctive understanding of natural patterns, animal behavior, and environmental hazards. The Deathworlders seemed to anticipate the movements of the planet itself, treating it as a partner rather than an obstacle. This adaptability extended to problem-solving as well. When faced with collapsed bridges, unstable cliffs, or malfunctioning alien machinery, the Deathworlders did not panic or wait for instructions. They improvised solutions, often using simple materials in ingenious ways. Alien engineers watched in amazement as a Deathworlder reinforced a crumbling bridge with nearby debris and rope, allowing the team to cross safely. No calculations, no manuals, only experience, instinct, and quick thinking. Alien leaders began to realize that traditional measures of intelligence and strength were insufficient to understand these visitors. The Deathworlders did not follow the same logic or societal rules as any known species. They acted independently, yet with a coherence that the aliens could not replicate. Their actions were guided not by authority or protocol, but by adaptability, observation, and survival instinct. Every encounter was unpredictable, yet effective. At night, when the city lights glimmered and citizens slept in uneasy anticipation, the Deathworlders' activity continued. They moved quietly through streets, maintaining watches, examining structures, and ensuring their temporary shelters were secure. They did not need rest in the same way the aliens did, but they maintained a careful vigilance, demonstrating a discipline rooted in survival rather than culture. Their quiet presence left a lasting impression on anyone who observed them. They were always alert, always aware, and always in control of themselves and their environment. The alien scientists recorded every detail, from their physical abilities to their problem-solving skills. They began to speculate about the Deathworlders' history. Clearly, these beings had survived on multiple harsh worlds, faced unimaginable dangers, and emerged not only alive but stronger. Their instincts were honed from experience in environments where failure meant death. Every action, every decision, every movement was a reflection of centuries of survival knowledge. The Deathworlders' methods were also marked by a surprising sense of ethics. They did not destroy unnecessarily, they avoided harming innocent creatures, and they respected life whenever possible. When confronted by hostile alien wildlife, they neutralized threats efficiently without causing undue harm. When navigating fragile ecosystems, they adapted without disrupting the balance. Observers noted a kind of wisdom in their approach. They valued life, efficiency, and results over chaos or destruction. By the end of the third cycle, the aliens had learned some important lessons, though they still struggled to fully understand the visitors. The Deathworlders had shown that survival required more than knowledge, technology, or diplomacy. It required instinct, adaptability, and the ability to act decisively in unpredictable situations. The aliens recognized that their carefully constructed rules and plans were insufficient when faced with beings who operated outside the expected boundaries of behavior. The alien population had grown used to the constant presence of the Deathworlders, though they never lost their sense of awe and fear. Markets, streets, and observation towers were filled with people eager to watch the visitors, careful not to get too close. Citizens discussed their actions, scientists analyzed every movement, and leaders reconsidered their assumptions about control, intelligence, and the galaxy itself. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they had rewritten the rules without uttering a single word. In one final observation, alien scouts noted the Deathworlders' ability to coordinate without communication. Multiple visitors would approach complex obstacles simultaneously, adjusting in real time to changes in the environment or unforeseen hazards. No instructions were given, no signals exchanged, yet every movement was synchronized. Alien scientists struggled to understand the mechanism behind this coordination. It was unlike anything they had ever observed, instinctive, precise, and highly effective. By the end of the cycle, the aliens had a new perspective on life, survival, and intelligence. They realized that they were witnessing a level of skill and adaptability far beyond their comprehension. The Deathworlders were not conquerors, but they were not ordinary visitors either. They were survivors, masters of their environment, and a living demonstration of what it meant to adapt, endure, and succeed against impossible odds. As the alien sun set, casting long shadows across the city and forests, the Deathworlders settled into their temporary shelters. Their presence remained a constant reminder that the universe was larger, stranger, and more complex than any civilization could predict. The aliens, for the first time in generations, felt both humbled and inspired. They had encountered a species that did not conform to expectations, a species that demanded respect for skill, instinct, and survival. The lessons of the Deathworlders were clear. Knowledge and rules could not replace instinct, adaptability, and experience. Every movement, every decision, and every action mattered. The aliens would never see the galaxy in the same way again. And while the visitors had not spoken a single word, their presence communicated something far more powerful than language. A reminder that survival, intelligence, and resilience were measured not by rules or technology, but by the ability to navigate a universe full of unknowns. The alien civilization had never experienced anything like the presence of the Deathworlders. For cycles, the visitors had moved through their cities, forests, and wildlands, observing, adapting, and demonstrating extraordinary skill. By now, the aliens understood that these beings were unlike any other in the galaxy. They were not conquerors, not casual explorers, and not bound by rules or traditions. Every action, every step, every decision reflected survival, experience, and instinct beyond anything the aliens could imagine. The leadership of the alien civilization convened yet another council, this time in a grand chamber deep within their capital. The chamber's walls shimmered with displays of sensors, star maps, and real-time footage of the Deathworlders moving through the world. Every council member was tense, aware that their previous assumptions about control, diplomacy, and knowledge had been challenged. "We have tried to communicate," one member began, voice steady but worried. "We have sent signals, messages, greetings. Yet they do not respond as expected. How do we know what they want?" Another counselor, older and more cautious, replied, "Perhaps they do not care about communication in the way we do. They act according to instinct and experience, not rules or etiquette. They are not here to fight us, but they are not here to obey us either." The council murmured in agreement, realizing the truth in those words. The Deathworlders were a new kind of intelligence, one that valued results over procedure and survival over protocol. The aliens decided to make one more attempt at diplomacy, hoping to at least understand the visitors' motives. A small delegation, composed of the most skilled communicators and scientists, approached the Deathworlders in a neutral zone. They carried symbols of peace, gestures of welcome, and messages carefully constructed in multiple languages. Yet the Deathworlders ignored the gestures, examining the environment and the delegation with quiet focus. Their eyes, sharp and observant, assessed every detail, but they did not acknowledge the aliens' intentions in the ways the Council hoped. Instead of hostility, the Deathworlders displayed a strict efficiency. They continued to survey the area, examining the terrain, analyzing structures, and moving through obstacles with ease. The alien delegation realized that these visitors had a code of their own, one based not on social custom or morality, but on practicality and necessity. They acted decisively when danger was present, and carefully when precision mattered. It was a foreign concept for the aliens, who had always relied on rules, laws, and precedent to guide their actions. In one instance, a group of Deathworlders approached a damaged bridge over a deep chasm. Alien engineers had assumed it was unsafe and warned everyone to stay clear. The Deathworlders, however, did not hesitate. They examined the structure, moved slowly and deliberately, and repaired it using only nearby materials. The bridge became functional again in minutes. Alien scientists recorded the event in awe. "They do not follow our methods," one whispered, "but their results are perfect." Throughout the day, the Deathworlders continued their survey, moving through areas considered dangerous or impossible. They navigated through industrial zones, dense forests, and wildlands filled with aggressive creatures. Each time they faced an obstacle, they adapted instantly, never panicking, never hesitating. Alien observers were fascinated and anxious at the same time. The visitors' ability to survive in such environments without preparation or error challenged everything the aliens believed about intelligence and skill. The presence of the Deathworlders also caused subtle changes in the alien society. Citizens became more observant, scientists more careful in their studies, and leaders more cautious in their decisions. Fear and respect intertwined. People whispered about the visitors' strength and wisdom, noting how they seemed to understand environments, creatures, and technology in ways humans and aliens alike had never imagined. Even those who had previously dismissed the newcomers as strange explorers began to admit that they were witnessing a force beyond comprehension. The Alien Council also noticed the visitors' strict sense of ethics. Despite their power, skill, and adaptability, the Deathworlders avoided unnecessary harm. They did not destroy structures or life forms without cause. They neutralized threats efficiently and carefully, demonstrating restraint in a way that contradicted their intimidating appearance. The aliens began to understand that the Deathworlders were not reckless or cruel. They simply prioritized survival and practicality above all else. The turning point came when a major storm hit the alien city. The winds were fierce, buildings shook, and alien infrastructure began to fail under pressure. Panic spread among the citizens, and the council feared chaos. Yet the Deathworlders moved calmly through the city. They reinforced weak structures, guided citizens to safety, and coordinated with instinctive precision to minimize damage. No protocols, no instructions, only action based on observation and experience. Alien leaders watched from their chambers, realizing that the Deathworlders were not just visitors. They were a force that could teach lessons about resilience, courage, and problem-solving. One alien engineer, tasked with studying their techniques, remarked, "They do not need technology to succeed where we fail. Their skill comes from knowledge of themselves, the world, and how to act in any situation. It is something we cannot replicate, no matter our machines or calculations." Others nodded in agreement. The Deathworlders' methods were a combination of instinct, experience, and intelligence, honed by survival in deadly environments over generations. By now, citizens had grown used to the visitors' presence, though wariness remained. Streets were crowded with observers at safe distances. Children peered from windows, elders whispered warnings, and scientists followed their every move. Every day brought new lessons, new surprises, and new displays of adaptability. The Deathworlders were both an enigma and a mirror, reflecting the aliens' limitations and showing what could be achieved with instinct, courage, and skill. The Council held another meeting, this time to reevaluate their strategy. They acknowledged that traditional diplomacy had failed. Their attempts to communicate, reason, and guide the Deathworlders had little effect. The visitors did not operate within the constraints of law, etiquette, or protocol. Instead, they relied on adaptability, observation, and experience. "We must accept that we cannot control them," one elder concluded. "We can only observe, learn, and respect what they bring." Meanwhile, the Deathworlders explored the outskirts of the city. Alien scouts predicted that they would stick to safe paths, but the visitors chose more dangerous routes. They crossed unstable cliffs, dense swamps, and deep forests without difficulty. Alien biologists recorded every movement, noting how the Deathworlders seemed to anticipate every environmental change. Their survival skills were unmatched. They did not fear predators, storms, or unstable terrain. Instead, they treated each obstacle as a challenge to be analyzed and overcome with efficiency and care. The Deathworlders' presence also sparked philosophical debates among the aliens. Scholars discussed the meaning of intelligence, adaptability, and survival. Some argued that the visitors were superior because they relied on experience and instinct rather than rules and technology. Others suggested that the Deathworlders were a reminder that knowledge without flexibility was limited. Every discussion returned to the same idea. These visitors had arrived not to conquer or destroy, but to demonstrate a level of skill and awareness the aliens had never seen. In another notable incident, the Deathworlders encountered a collapsed tunnel leading to the alien city's water supply. Alien engineers had deemed it too dangerous to repair quickly. Yet the visitors approached, assessed the situation, and within minutes had reinforced the tunnel using nearby materials. Water began to flow again. The aliens were astonished. Not only had the Deathworlders solved a critical problem without instructions, but they had done so in a way that minimized risk and avoided unnecessary destruction. As days passed, the alien society began to change subtly. Citizens learned from observation, engineers adopted more flexible approaches, and leaders reconsidered their assumptions about intelligence and control. Fear was gradually replaced by respect, curiosity, and humility. The Deathworlders had not changed their behavior. They had simply revealed new possibilities and lessons through action and example. By the end of this cycle, the aliens realized the full impact of the Deathworlders' presence. These visitors had challenged their knowledge, skills, and assumptions. They had demonstrated mastery of survival, adaptability, and ethics that surpassed any formal education, technology, or rule system the aliens possessed. They were not conquerors, not diplomats, and not invaders. They were exemplars of resilience, instinct, and efficiency. The final lesson came when the Alien Council observed the Deathworlders coordinating among themselves without communication. Several of the visitors approached a damaged energy facility simultaneously. Without exchanging words or signals, they worked in perfect synchronization, adjusting to the environment, the equipment, and each other's actions. Alien scientists had never seen anything like it. It was instinct, experience, and understanding working together seamlessly, without instruction, without hesitation, and without error. The council met again to discuss their observations. They concluded that their understanding of intelligence, skill, and strategy was incomplete. The Deathworlders had shown them that survival was more than knowledge, technology, or rules. It was adaptability, instinct, and the ability to act decisively in unpredictable circumstances. "We have much to learn," one elder admitted. "Not from their words, for they speak little, but from their actions. They are teaching us through what they do, not what they say." As night fell over the alien city, the Deathworlders continued their movements quietly but efficiently. They maintained watch over their temporary shelters, surveyed areas of interest, and navigated the streets and outskirts with unwavering confidence. Citizens watched, scientists recorded, and leaders reflected on the lessons learned. The visitors were no longer just a mystery. They were a guide, a challenge, and a mirror, reflecting the limitations of alien knowledge and the possibilities of instinct and skill. By the end of the cycle, the aliens understood something fundamental. The Deathworlders had arrived not to conquer or to destroy, but to demonstrate a level of adaptability, intelligence, and resilience that demanded respect. Their presence would shape the civilization's thinking, planning, and understanding of the universe for generations to come. The turning point had come, not through words, battles, or treaties, but through observation, action, and example. The Deathworlders remained a quiet but powerful force, reminding the aliens that true strength lay in skill, adaptability, and ethical decision-making. Every action they took, every obstacle they overcame, and every decision they made was a lesson in survival, resilience, and intelligence. The alien civilization, once confident in its knowledge and control, had learned humility, respect, and the importance of observation. The turning point was complete. The Deathworlders had not changed themselves. They had changed the aliens' understanding of what it meant to live, to survive, and to thrive in a galaxy full of unknowns. And while the visitors remained enigmatic, silent, and efficient, their influence would be felt long after they moved beyond the city, leaving a lasting mark on the alien civilization and its view of the universe. The alien civilization had survived the presence of the Deathworlders, yet nothing would ever be the same again. Over the cycles, the visitors had moved through cities, forests, and wildlands, observing, adapting, and demonstrating skills beyond comprehension. The aliens had watched, recorded, and tried to understand, but the Deathworlders were not bound by rules, tradition, or expectations. Their actions had left a deep mark, reshaping how the aliens thought about survival, intelligence, and life itself. In the capital, the council gathered to discuss the aftermath. The city was safe, infrastructure had been strengthened, and citizens had adjusted to the constant vigilance required by the newcomers' presence. Yet there was a new awareness among the leadership, a recognition that their knowledge, their technology, and their strategies were limited. One counselor spoke quietly. "They have shown us a way of thinking, a way of acting that is beyond our rules. They have no guidebooks, no protocols, yet they succeed where we struggle." Another elder nodded. "They are not conquerors, but they are forces we cannot predict. They have tested our understanding, our planning, and our confidence, and we have learned from it. We have learned that survival is more than control. It is awareness, adaptability, and courage." Outside, the citizens had begun to feel the impact of the Deathworlders' presence in their daily lives. Streets were no longer as orderly, but people were more observant, more cautious, and more skilled in handling unexpected events. Children who had once been taught only rules and procedure now learned to watch, adapt, and think independently. Citizens whispered stories about the visitors' abilities, from their incredible skill in navigating dangerous terrain to their instinctive problem-solving in critical situations. These stories spread across the city, inspiring both admiration and humility. The Deathworlders themselves remained quiet, efficient, and deliberate. They did not interact with the citizens in ways the aliens understood, but their actions spoke volumes. They repaired broken infrastructure, stabilized dangerous areas, and navigated hazards with instinctive skill. At no point did they seek praise or recognition. They acted out of necessity and experience. Every movement was a lesson in observation, careful planning, and adaptability. Alien observers recorded their behavior, understanding that words could not capture the essence of these visitors. They had to be watched, studied, and learned from directly. The turning point of the aftermath came when the Deathworlders assisted in preventing a potential disaster. A minor quake had struck near the city's power facilities, threatening to cut off energy to entire districts. Alien engineers had begun evacuations and emergency protocols, yet the Deathworlders arrived first. They assessed the damage instantly, moving through unstable corridors and reinforcing weak structures with minimal effort. Energy distribution was restored, and what could have been a catastrophe was averted. Citizens who witnessed the event were stunned. Their fear of the visitors had shifted into a cautious respect. These beings, though intimidating, had shown care and intelligence in every action. In the days that followed, the Alien Council organized debriefings for all observers and scientists who had studied the Deathworlders. Data from sensors, drones, and field reports were compiled, analyzed, and debated. One engineer remarked, "They are not predictable, yet every action has purpose. They adapt instantly. They understand the environment, the technology, and the people around them. We have learned more from watching them than from our most advanced simulations." Biologists focused on the Deathworlders' physical and cognitive abilities. They noted their exceptional endurance, reflexes, and observation skills. Their instinctive understanding of both natural and constructed environments was extraordinary. Unlike most species, they did not rely on advanced technology to survive. Their skill and experience were sufficient. Every step, every decision, every movement was a demonstration of adaptability and intelligence. It was clear that the Deathworlders had been forged by environments far harsher than the alien world, and they carried lessons of survival from countless worlds with them. Citizens also adapted to a new rhythm of life. Markets, schools, and streets became spaces where observation and careful movement were emphasized. Children learned to watch how others moved, noting how the Deathworlders assessed hazards and solved problems. Elders shared stories about the visitors' actions, emphasizing skill, observation, and instinct. Citizens grew more confident in their ability to respond to unexpected challenges. Fear was replaced, slowly but surely, by respect and understanding. Alien leaders, too, were transformed. Their approach to governance shifted from strict control to observation, adaptability, and flexible planning. They realized that rules and procedures were insufficient for dealing with unknown threats. Instead, they began to value intelligence that could respond to change, skill that could navigate unpredictability, and awareness that could anticipate danger. In effect, the Deathworlders had reshaped the society's mindset, teaching lessons that could not be learned from books, simulations, or past experience. The final lesson came in a quiet moment when the Deathworlders prepared to depart. The ships, massive and scarred, stood ready at the outskirts of the city. They did not make announcements, give speeches, or demand attention. They simply completed their tasks, inspected their surroundings, and prepared to leave as efficiently as they had arrived. The aliens watched in silence. In the months of observation, they had learned much, but the visitors' motives, history, and origin remained largely unknown. And yet the impact was undeniable. One scientist observed, "They teach without speaking. They lead without commanding. They survive without fear. Their methods are instinctive, yet perfectly effective. We may never fully understand them, but we have learned from them." The words captured the mood of the entire civilization. Fear, curiosity, and respect mingled together. The Deathworlders had arrived unexpectedly, ignored protocol, and moved through the alien world as if it were a test or a lesson. And in doing so, they had left a permanent mark. The citizens' stories became part of the culture. Songs, stories, and art began to depict the visitors, not as conquerors, but as examples of resilience, intelligence, and adaptability. Schools included lessons on observation, problem-solving, and instinct, inspired by the Deathworlders' actions. Leaders reconsidered training programs, prioritizing flexibility, awareness, and decision-making over strict adherence to rules. Every aspect of the civilization was subtly altered, influenced by the visitors who had arrived without warning. In the final hours before their departure, the Deathworlders walked through the city one last time. They inspected critical structures, ensured that hazards were managed, and moved among the citizens with calm awareness. They did not interact directly, but their presence communicated lessons far more powerful than words. Observation, adaptability, skill, and ethical decision-making, these were the gifts they left behind. Citizens watched, scientists recorded, and leaders reflected on what they had witnessed. When the ships finally lifted off, the aliens felt a mix of relief, awe, and sadness. The visitors had changed their world forever. They had arrived unexpectedly, ignored rules, and moved through their civilization with efficiency, skill, and instinct. Yet they had not caused destruction, had not demanded submission, and had not acted recklessly. Instead, they had shown what it meant to survive, to adapt, and to act with awareness in a galaxy full of unknowns. The council held a final meeting to reflect on the visitors' impact. One elder said quietly, "We cannot say why they came. We cannot predict where they will go. Yet we can see the lessons they leave behind. We have learned humility, respect, and the importance of skill. We have learned that intelligence is not only knowledge, it is awareness, adaptability, and action." In the days that followed, alien society continued to adapt. Citizens moved through the streets with greater awareness. Engineers designed structures with flexibility in mind. Scientists considered multiple possibilities before making predictions. Leaders accepted uncertainty as a constant, learning to make decisions with observation and adaptability rather than rigid rules. The Deathworlders' visit had reshaped the very way the civilization thought and acted. Stories of the Deathworlders spread across the galaxy. Other species, hearing of their arrival and the lessons imparted, began to reconsider their own assumptions about intelligence, skill, and survival. The aliens became ambassadors of a new understanding, that the galaxy was unpredictable, that survival required more than technology and rules, and that instinct, observation, and adaptability were equally vital. Even generations later, citizens would remember the visitors. Children growing up long after the Deathworlders had left would hear stories of their skill, their calm efficiency, and their ethical approach to challenges. Schools taught lessons inspired by their actions. Leaders trained diplomats, engineers, and soldiers to think beyond rules, to anticipate the unknown, and to respect life in all its forms. The legacy of the visitors lived on, shaping the civilization in ways no one could have predicted. Finally, in a quiet observation chamber, a scientist reflected on the entire encounter. They came without warning, ignored our expectations, and moved through our world like it was a classroom. We may never know why. But they have shown us something far more important than their origin or intent. They have shown us how to survive, how to act, and how to understand the universe in ways we never imagined. As the alien sun set over the capital city, its light reflecting on towers, streets, and forests, the people felt a quiet sense of transformation. The Deathworlders were gone, yet their influence remained. They had arrived unexpectedly, challenged assumptions, and taught lessons that could not be learned from books or technology. They were a reminder that survival, skill, and intelligence were measured not by rules or tools, but by the ability to adapt, observe, and act with awareness and purpose. And though the galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and full of unknowns, the aliens faced the future with new eyes, new respect, and a deeper understanding of what it meant to live, to survive, and to thrive. The Deathworlders had arrived, left their mark, and moved on, but their lessons would endure, shaping the civilization for generations to come. The universe was no longer the same for the aliens. Neither were they.